Hi everyone. When considering what a fair and reasonable contribution we have, maybe to look back at history, recent history, this morning we were told that Scottish Whisky, for a start, had paid £3.5 billion to revenue last year. If you look at our oil and gas over the last 40 years, on average, the Scottish revenue from the Scottish geographical area is £8 billion a year for 40 years. Remember, in its wisdom, the Westminster government voted or decided to sell all our interests to the private sector in oil and gas. They also were one of the only two governments who have had oil and gas in their area deciding not to have a sovereign wealth fund. Had these decisions not been made, and similar to Norway, although they actually got less oil and gas than we have, they actually got £566 billion more in revenue because they kept theirs in the public sector. That's one of the reasons. If you take that into account, if Scotland's level of revenue per barrel had been equivalent, we'd have been providing £20 billion a year. Why we should suffer because the Westminster government was incompetent, I don't understand. Norway, at the same time, also decided to have a sovereign wealth fund. They have £770 billion in that now, pounds that is. Meanwhile, we are meant to share £2 trillion of UK debt. I don't really see the justification for that either. Meantime, many of our principal industries were allowed to go to the wall: shipbuilding, car building, steel. The only steel that's left is due to the support of the Scottish Government. And possibly worse is the destruction that's had on our communities. Workers put in the dole paid by our oil revenue, left feeling inadequate and independent. That's not changing. There's no reducing support for our renewable section, and if we go ahead with Brexit, our food and drink industry is going to go down the tubes. Sharing is out of the question. We've supplied all this revenue. If we had been getting a fair share, fine. But it's all going to the London economy. And Scotland, with the rest of the country, is suffering increased poverty and food banks.
That's your time.
Sorry, is it? Okay.
I'm afraid so.
I would just ask, taking these things on board, please don't consider that we owe the UK to pay continuously for the debt that they have incurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. If we can move on, delegates, to Amendment B, and I would ask George Kerrivan to move the motion.